Yes, if only we could have a Moopsie.
Yes, moopsies are needed.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, we are live. Welcome,
Dude,
everybody.
sneaky little jerk. You're not a jerk. You're not.
No, I'm just
But you
a
are
little
sneaky.
mean.
No, in a good way. In a good way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But
You're
yeah, we are live. Welcome back, everybody. It's been a couple weeks. Thank you for being patient. We are here today to talk about 2 episodes of Star Trek Discovery here on the Unready Room. So I'm Dan Gunther. With me, of course, is the wonderful Brandi Jackola. Brandi,
Oh,
how's it going today?
it's kind of weird because Dave is working overtime, and so he is not
Hmm.
watching this live,
Oh,
and so it's kind of a bummer in that
yeah,
way for me because I always appreciate just knowing he's in the other room watching. But,
absolutely.
yeah, he'll be watching this later, and so I'll say, "Hi, baby, I love you, and
Aw.
I miss you," and it was his birthday yesterday too,
I
so
saw. Yeah, I was all excited to wish him a happy birthday on here,
I
which
know.
I still will because he'll see it. Happy birthday, Dave. But I won't get the immediate feedback in the comments, so it's just selfish for me that I'm bummed, I guess.
Yeah, it's how it is, so
Yeah.
but, things are just that way today, and that's okay, he'll watch it later, probably after we've, reasserted ourselves in Baldur's Gate 3 again, so
Yeah, I see you've been yeah, doing that a lot. That's awesome.
yeah, we finished the whole game, and then Dave's like, "Do you wanna do it again?" And I'm like, "Yes!
Yeah, of
I
course.
wanna do a different character in a different class, and I wanna do it all again, but only with you."
Aw, that's awesome. Well, yeah, so we do see a bunch of our regulars in the comments though, and it's really great to see all of you. So welcome, thanks for joining us. And along with Dave, a lot of other people will be watching this later. Thank you so much. We appreciate you as well. And yeah, we'll jump right in because we've got 2 episodes to talk about. We've got a bit of catching up to do. We've got mirrors and Whistlespeak. So let's start out with mirrors. Now, so cast your minds back a couple weeks ago, a little bit, well, a week and a bit ago, I guess. Uh, we've got the how did we start out that episode? We had they got out of the time bug, and now they've got to track down Maul and Locke. And thankfully, Stamets has the technobabble solution, along with Tilly and Adira, to reveal this wormhole, of a sort of a wormhole, as Stamets says, that leads to this interdimensional space. And Burnham and Book are going to go in because, of course, Book and his familiarity with Maul could be useful here. So, um, yeah, we got like a little bit of a sidetrack last week with the time bug, and this week we're back on the hunt for the next clue and also racing with Maul and Locke to find it. So, kind of back to the main storyline here. And Book and Burnham together after the awkward encounter last week with the past version of Book. So, interesting.
Yeah, well, see, and that's the thing, this book doesn't know that that happened, and so
No.
Michael's acting weird.
Yeah, there's a little bit of there's a couple moments in this episode of forlornness, I guess. Just a
Yeah,
little bit, right? So,
yeah.
with only 10 episodes this season, like I'm firmly of the belief they're going to get them back together by the end of the season, but we've kind of got to fast track things a little bit. And somebody made a comment recently about the last episode that Star Trek does this thing where they like give a relationship a kick in the pants to get it going using time stuff. So
Mm,
or weird sci-fi stuff. Like how many times did that happen with Trip and T'Pol, right? Like
mhm,
we meet the future T'Pol who's had a son with Trip, and that like informs T'Pol like, oh my goodness, she meets Trip's doppelganger who lives rapidly and professes his love to her. Like there's these little sci-fi things that just kind of kickstart things. And in this one, Burnham flashed back and kind of remembered that good time and is now maybe like freshly emboldened or motivated to maybe make things right again between the two of them.
Yeah, and in the previous cases, I'm not saying this about Discovery. In the previous cases, it is a very sort of soap opery,
Mhm.
cheesy romance novel trope. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it gets old. It was especially frustrating in the older series because it wasn't about overarching story anymore. You know, it's
Mm.
just like, no, no, we can't do this. When people get together, then all of the nobody's interested in the characters anymore when they're happy together and all that stuff. And I'm like, what is wrong with all of those people? What is
Mhm.
wrong about seeing a two well-adjusted people in a committed, happy relationship? What is the problem with that? It's not good enough for you guys? You
Mhm.
need to work on your expectations of life.
Well, I'm gonna give you exhibit number 15 of 2000 as to why I'm not a writer in Hollywood.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
Similar to, like, romantic relationships like that, like, I just want everybody to be happy. Like, why
mhm.
do we have to have all this conflict? Why do we have to have all these, weird dramatic things happening? I would love just like a day in the life of everybody on Discovery and everybody has a nice day. Now that
Yeah,
doesn't make for compelling television, but I would love that. And again, that's why I'm not a Hollywood writer because, we would watch that, but I think a lot of other people probably wouldn't. Um, so, yeah, there's that need to introduce conflict and whatever, but I just want to see them happy.
I do too. I mean, they Star well, just not even just Star Trek is guilty of this. So many shows are guilty of this with the will they or won't they stuff, and I am tired of it. Just like I'm tired of shows where there are awful people being awful to each other. And it seems like, shows like Succession have paved the way for more of that, which I have
Mhm.
zero interest in. I know what the world is like already. I don't want to watch it on television. I
Mhm.
don't. I go to television and movies for an escape. By the way, everybody go see The Fall Guy. It's absolutely
I
frickin' amazing
kinda
and
want to, yeah.
brilliant, and stay for all the credits, trust me.
Hmm.
Anyway, sometimes it just gets to me. I don't want to always see the darkness. Give me the light. Give me the happy couples, which we have in
Mhm.
Culber and Stamets, and we have in Tarina and Saru, and yet let's get back to them.
I
Don't
was
want to
like,
see
"Do we
them.
have that? Because where the heck is Saru?"
Where are
It's not
they?
in the opening credits anymore, which makes
No.
me pained.
Well, see, that's the
Um,
thing. They change the opening credits depending on who is in the episode.
I know, but it just
But yeah,
it just reinforces the fact when I'm watching the credits, I'm like, "No, okay.
no action Saru this week.
No action Saru.
He's
Action
actually
Saru in
Saru
any
in the
universe."
universe.
Yeah.
Great minds.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, Ricky makes an interesting comment here. Maybe I'm just not traumatized enough or, I'm too well adjusted to be a Hollywood writer that
Mhm.
might be actually, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good point. So yeah, we've got Burnham and Book. They're crossing over into this interdimensional space through the wormhole. Right away, and I remember you expressed kind of surprise at this when we talked about the episode when it first came out too. Right away, they see Mullen Locke's ship just split in two, and I liked that ship. That was a
I know.
cool looking ship, and it's gone. I wasn't
It
expecting that.
is. I was not either because, that ship is it's pretty, stealthy. They've got all of their decoys for warp signatures and all that sort of stuff, plus they've got those really nifty warp engines, and just it was just such a cool design and such an interesting ship, and now it's gone!
Yeah,
I
but
mean, I'm not all about the ships, but still.
still, it's a neat design, yeah.
Yeah.
But they've made their way onto another ship though, that's what's happening here. So,
This
uh
was me during that scene, okay? This was me. That was me. That was the totality of my reaction, but with more screaming.
that's so cool, yeah. The ISS Enterprise, the Mirror Universe Enterprise that we previously saw in the TOS episode Mirror Mirror, we get to see its history here and what happened. And so apparently, um, it was used to ferry refugees from the Mirror Universe wanting to escape into the Prime Universe. And, you know, by the end of the episode, we find out she succeeded. They made it. They escaped on escape pods and got to our universe. And how cool was that? That's what a neat legacy for the Enterprise in that universe to, I like that.
I agree. It just warmed my heart because I just thought, "Oh, what the heck happened that all this damage has happened in the interior? What kind of battle took place here?" And then you find out it was more just, you know, people trying to get to a safe place, and
Mhm.
my heart.
Yeah.
So, the one thing I didn't like was Burnham saying that she thought that, Spock would have been just as ruthless as everybody else, and I'm like,
You don't know.
"Mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm-mm, mm."
I have a whole thing on that because
Yeah.
I kept expecting them to learn about the Mirror Spock because reference is made to him in this episode
Mhm,
when, Book is reading the history of the ship and mentions that the Terran Chancellor was killed for making reforms, and that was Spock. Like,
mhm,
they didn't realize that, but that was Spock that did that. And like, because the dialogue is very, it mirrors mirrors what Kira said in the Deep Space Nine episode Crossover, the Mirror Kira. So she gives the history here. She says, "On my side, Kirk is one of the most famous names in our history. Almost a century ago, a Terran starship captain named James Kirk accidentally exchanged places with his counterpart from your side due to a transporter accident. Artarians were barbarians then, but their empire was strong. While your Kirk was on this side, he met a Vulcan named Spock and somehow had a profound influence on him. Afterwards, Spock rose to commander in chief of the Empire by preaching reforms, disarmament, peace. It was quite a remarkable turnabout for his people." So that that was Spock that she was talking about.
mhm.
They do learn, of course, as we kind of hinted at earlier, that a Kelpian slave turned rebel leader helped them, which they and we all assume to be Saru for sure. So
Yeah,
that's so cool.
they have to be.
Yeah, action
We're
Saru,
assuming. In any universe.
absolutely. So it's really cool to see the Enterprise again. I feel like we're not going to get deep into the ship arguments about canon and all that sort of stuff. This episode, I will say, cements, I think, the idea that the look of the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds and all of that isn't something that gets refitted and changed to look like the Enterprise in TOS. We're meant to see this as the ship as it was in TOS, because if that's the case, then this one has the old look and then got the new look and then went back to the old. It doesn't make sense. So
Yeah,
it's a visual reboot. That's okay. That's fine.
yeah.
I'm okay with it. I know a lot of people online aren't, but
Oh,
if
I
I,
don't care.
yeah, I mean, I kind of, I get it. I get wanting to hold on to that, but I it's at some point you have to make a choice if it's going to ruin your enjoyment of the show or not. And
Mhm,
I choose to not let it ruin the enjoyment of my show,
same.
which I greatly enjoy. So
Agreed.
yeah. Would I like it all to make visual sense and my nerd brain wants to put all that? Yeah, sure. But that, as Austin Powers said, that train has sailed.
Yeah, yes.
No. So Mirror Universe, finding out the history of that, that's really cool. I'm really hoping Burnham looks up the history of Mirror Spock, that, Kira and Bashir made a detailed report about what they learned and she can read that maybe. Because she deserves to be proud of her alternate universe brother as well, I think. So
Agreed, and honestly, she's looked up Spock before, she's looked up Prime Spock before, so, you know, what's so out of character for her to go look up Mirror Spock, see what happened there?
No. Totally. I love that someone else does that too. Thank you. Thank you, Tristan. Awesome.
Yes, it's great, it's great.
I
It's
say
one
it
of
all
my
the time too.
I'm gonna say it more. I haven't said it in a while, and I'm gonna say it more. That train has sailed.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like I said, Locke and Maul are on the ship. They're in sick bay. We get, kind of the action scene with the holographic decoys and all of that. That's kind of cool. And Book tries to kind of make this connection with Maul, and Burnham pulls her little bluff of saying they don't have the actual clue. They have the real clue, and um, that kind of game of cat and mouse. And then we get this interesting situation where something's damaged and the sick bay's isolated, and it's a little bit like set up, but Book and Maul are trapped outside, and Burnham and Locke are trapped inside. So now Book and Maul have to go to the bridge together to kind of figure this out, and we get them kind of learning about each other and connecting a little bit over their association with Cleveland Booker the Fourth, who was a great mentor to our Cleveland Booker, but maybe not so great a dad to Maul, at least from Maul's perspective, which I have to say, she does a great job in this episode. I really love her performance. She's
Mhm.
excellent. She plays tough and swagger, and then pivots to wounded and like so fast, and it's so good.
Well, that's the thing, the whole tough thing is a front.
Hmm.
She
Absolutely.
doesn't want to have to be tough, but she does it because it keeps people from seeing the hurt.
Mhm.
But she kinda can't do that so well with Book, and she, of course, never does it with Locke because, they're together, but I'm as far as the whole Shield's, uh, malfunction thing, I'm just gonna write that off to, when they blew up the hologram emitters, because holograms and shields, very close in their structure. They
Mhm.
probably tripped some kind of circuit, that's what happened. That's how
Yeah.
I headcanon
Well, we do
it.
see some damage to something in the corridor, and it's kind of implied
Yep,
that it was just crossfire happened
yeah.
to.
So that's
Yeah.
what I'm going with is that, something got damaged, and then all of a sudden it's just like, "Ah, the circuit failed," and all of these force fields come down. So, because yeah, they didn't hit the holographic emitter on the first try.
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, you know, I was more talking about the convenience of the
Oh,
pairing,
absolutely,
of
of
course.
who was where, yeah.
Yeah.
That's very convenient, yeah, but,
Mm.
it works. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. So yeah, we get some between Book and Maul, which I appreciated. Like two great actors, who are both very hurt in various ways, and one of them reaching for connection and one of them slapping the hand away, but also desperate for connection as well.
Yeah.
Really good.
Well, it's hard for her to trust, and who
Mhm.
can blame her?
Of course, yeah.
Because just about everybody in her life, except for Locke, has let her down.
Mhm.
So, yeah, she's had to fend for herself for far too long, and it makes you very, very cagey. It makes a person cagey, and it makes you not want to ever be vulnerable again. And so the fact that she even let Locke in is an amazing thing.
Mhm. Yeah. And as Ricky here says, the chemistry between them, Maul and Locke for sure,
Mhm.
really, really good. They're excellent on
Yeah.
screen. And we'll get to the flashbacks too, because I want to talk about that. But I also want to talk about Burnham and Locke in sickbay, because it's kind of an interesting this pairing between Maul and Locke. Locke is a little bit, and we've seen this a few times, he's a little bit more unsure
Mm.
about what they're doing and what's happening. And Burnham, I feel like, almost gets to him when he's considering it, right? He's like, if we turn ourselves over to the Federation, can we ensure that we're together? um, and Burnham says she could advocate for that. So he's a little bit, I think he's reachable in that
Mhm.
moment. And Maul seems to be really the driving force behind, no, we have to persevere, we have to keep going, all that. So I see that maybe coming to a head later in the season for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's not necessarily because that's what Maul wants to do, but what she thinks she has to do because of the Eriga and how
Mhm.
you can't get rid of it in a very easy way, except your death and whatnot. But I I feel like she is doing this for him. She is absolutely
Mhm.
doing all of this for him because if he's safe, then she'll be okay.
Yeah. And it goes both ways too. Like we've seen the huge amounts of protectiveness between the two of them. Like
Yeah.
Locke in that first episode, just you know, going to town on Fred for grazing Maul, right? And
Mhm.
in this one, we see both of them making the pleas for each other kind of thing. Um, it's interesting, and we get that backstory here. We see how they met. The one thing I would say, I feel like the placement of the flashbacks are kind of odd.
It
Like,
is odd.
yeah, like the episode switches perspective to Maul's perspective in a scene that I feel like was from Burnham and Book's perspective. So it's a little jarring there, but I do appreciate the backstory we get and
Mm.
the flashbacks to, uh, and of course the revelation that Locke is in fact a Breen, something that a lot of people had kind of uh, theorized or possibly sussed out beforehand. But um, yeah, seeing the 20 or the 32nd century Breen, that was pretty cool. And learning a bit about their nature too. They have these kind of two forms, and the more solid form that Locke chooses to wear is seen as a throwback or like a primitive form, and the more the jelly beans,
Gelatinous?
as I've heard them described.
Gelatinous? Yeah, mhm.
Yeah, that's can kinda see, and people saying like, "Oh, maybe that's why they felt like such close ties to the founders in the Dominion War." I'm like, "Oh, that's a neat little retcon, I like that."
Mhm. It's nice to finally know what a Breen looks like after all these years.
Mhm. Absolutely. I Jelly Bean. I love that.
Jelly Breen.
It's still my favorite. I wish I knew who first coined that, but that was really funny.
Jelly Breen. Love it.
Yeah. And, yeah, this, Elias Tufexis as well, just is so great
Mhm.
in his first of all, almost his naivete as the when he's with the Breen, this kind of lack of knowledge of the outside world and stuff, and then like his utter devotion to Maul, as we've said. He does that really, really well.
Yeah, also been a Trekkie since he was a kid, so
Yes.
I always love that.
Yeah, I love reading stuff by the actor Elias Tufexis. He's a strong Trekkie. He's very excited to be on the show. So
Yeah,
yeah,
he's a cool dude.
absolutely. Looking forward to seeing him at a convention someday. That would be cool.
Yeah, right? Maybe we'll finally start to get some Discovery cast members at FanX because,
Ooh, yeah.
they won't be under contract for what appearances they can make anymore.
Mhm.
How many appearances, I should say.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that backstory is interesting. We see like how so the Eriga is a Breen blood bounty, they call it, and basically for betraying his people by, I guess, fraternizing with an outsider, diluting the royal blood. It sounds like that's kind of where that's coming from, um, which is actually interesting. Breen have no blood, so I just
It's a figure of
I
speech.
know, but it just
But
occurred to me now that I'm like blood bounty. Wait, that's just the translation. I know, but
just
huh?
yeah. I guess it's the closest thing that the universal translator could do. I think they mean, blood. Yeah, we'll go with that. Not that
Yeah.
there's an intelligence inside the universal translator going, "Ah!" Can you imagine? Just like, "I don't know what that word is. I got nothing." Yeah, we'll just say it's blood or tree. Take your pick.
Whoops. Oh, mistranslation ignited a war. Ah, well,
Oh
it's a
man,
living.
I wish I was better at this. I'm only as good as they program me, guys. I don't know why that happens.
So, yeah, like I said, we've got that backstory oddly placed at a couple times in the episode. I don't know how they could have done it better personally, but
Mm.
it seemed a little jarring, but that's okay. We've got them on the bridge, and Maul's getting frustrated, and she starts a power overload to drop the force fields. But that ship is pretty old, and it's kind of disastrous. They lose all control and start hurtling towards the wormhole that keeps opening and closing. And we saw the effect that it had on Maul and Locke's ship. The Enterprise is quite a bit bigger, and they've got to
Mm.
get it through somehow. Um, I guess we should maybe take this moment to pop over and talk a bit about Commander Rayner. I almost said Shaw. Wow, that's funny. Hmm.
Oh my goodness. Yes, Commander Rayner coming into his own in this episode.
Yeah, I really liked him in command of Discovery. So, first of all, his kind of trepidation at taking command. He hasn't, he's been commanding a ship, but he hasn't commanded this group of people, and he's not sure about that. But Burnham, gives him her support, and I think he puts in a pretty good showing. I like how he kind of has to adapt a little bit to how they're doing things, and gets a report from Stamets. It's like, is it going to work or not? And he's like, well, no. And it's like, okay, I get it. I need more words. Tell me more.
Well, and how he progresses, where he realizes there's no one person who's going to have the answer to this,
Yes.
and so he's just like, okay, there's no bad ideas. What can
Yeah.
we do?
I love that. And yeah, they're not sure. First of all, the clue that he gets from Burnham and how he immediately realizes everything he has to do. I have to admit, when I watched the episode the first time, and I was waiting for the explanation, and I got to the end, and she said the sequence was from the play, the story from Keller and Culture. And he's like, okay, so he understood it as an SOS, but how did he know that he needed to make it bigger to allow, like, how was that communicated? And it's right before that, the tractor beam, right? She says, oh, it's from the shuttle, and the helm officer says, no, it's from something much bigger. And that's all it takes for him to go like, okay, they're on a big ship. And it's so quick that I kind of missed it, but he picked up on it.
Mm.
And then when he gets the distress signal, he's like, okay, we need to widen this thing to let whatever ship they're on, I guess, through. It's not the shuttle. It's got to be bigger. Um, so that was clever, but it did take my second watch to go, okay, I get it.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that because we get the screeners again don't have subtitles, and you
Yes.
you miss things. You miss
Hmm.
things. So when I watched it the second time, having the luxury of subtitles, I'm like, oh, on a lot of things, like, oh, that is not what I thought they said. you
Yeah.
know, and that happens a lot in things that I have never watched with subtitles until I've watched them with subtitles, and it's just like, wow, I've had that wrong for 20 years. Who knew?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh so yeah, that whole scene with the, a keg of Keller and citrus mash to whoever can figure this out or whatever. And in true Discovery fashion, they bat around the ideas all around the room, and the solution is kind of a mix of a bunch of different stuff. And he's like, "All right, citrus mash all around. Let's do it." That was one of my favorite scenes. I really like that.
Yeah, and he was encouraging in his gruff way. He was
Mhm.
just like, "Come on, we can do this. Give me ideas. What do we have?"
Yeah. And also just the subtle thing of like knowing when to require more information and when not to. Why hexagonal? And Nadir's like, well, because and Stamets is
Mm.
like, it's gonna work. What more do you need? Oh yeah, good point. Do it. I love that.
Why hexagonal? Because it's easier than circle.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it can be wider than circle at
Yep.
certain points. So
It's just geometry.
yeah, because it's the ship, you gotta get the saucer bit through.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we have the ISS Enterprise now at the Fleet Museum, I guess. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Why did they take away Detmer and Awoshikun for that?
Okay,
With the
so
what?
first of all, they're not even in this episode. They just get that name drop of, oh, they're going to be assigned to take the Enterprise back. Cool. What a great assignment. Good for them. I miss those two. What the hell?
I do too. I
I
mean,
don't understand.
the noobs are okay, but they're not our people
They're
yet.
fine.
They're fine, but they're not Awoshikun and Detmer.
Yeah. By the way, just a tiny little side tangent. I kind of want to make a whole video about this at some point, but I keep seeing online the argument like, why don't we know anything about the bridge crew and blah, blah, blah. I barely know their names and yada, yada, yada. What can you tell me about Ensign Rager from TNG, the con officer in a bunch of episodes, or
Mhm.
the 15 other random ensigns that had that position before and after her? Like, I know lots about Awoshika, I know lots about Detmer. Like, what are you talking about? They're not main characters.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's just weird. It's people just want to be angry about something.
Mhm.
Because if they focus on something outside of themselves, then they don't have to deal with why they're actually angry, because usually it's because they're angry at themselves and they don't want to be. So it's
Yeah.
just projection. That's what it is. It's projection.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that's my little rant. I'm like, we know
Yeah.
lots about them, and they're not main characters. Then
Yeah.
can't compare them to Data or anyway. Okay, that's rant aside. Um, so yeah, they've got the next clue, which includes this little vial of water, or sorry, liquid. We don't know what it is yet. Um,
Looks
that
like
they're
water though.
looks like water to me. That they're going to analyze, and that'll wait for the next episode. And we learn a little bit about the person who left this clue, who is a junior science officer on the ISS Enterprise, who then became a branch admiral in Starfleet on our side, and that's pretty cool.
Yes, it is. A win for the good guys.
So I have one question, just because I'm curious how this all works. I need to go back and watch season 3 of Discovery to see what they say about this, but Giorgio was like having all those problems and stuff because she was from the Terran universe and so far forward in the future. I'm wondering, like, does the Enterprise have that issue, or is that just organic material? I'm curious if it's gonna like start to have trouble being in our universe,
Um,
or because it didn't jump to the future because it lived through that time in interdimensional space and stuff, and just now I don't know, but
no, that
I'd be
makes sense
curious,
to
like,
me.
huh.
I would think it would be more of an organic thing,
Mm,
you know, because of cells resonating and whatnot. So
yeah,
so yeah, I would go with the theory that it's a organic thing and not an inert metal thing or whatever.
probably, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
All right. Well, anything we haven't mentioned in this episode you want to talk about, or final thoughts and ratings, I guess.
Um, I don't think I have anything else.
Sorry, that would be bad. Uh-oh.
Oh, I want that now.
Luckily, they have the uniforms that like just immediately like pop
Mhm.
a spacesuit around them if the ship like phases out around them, but
Yeah.
they'd be in the middle of nowhere for a little bit.
Yeah. How do you send a distress beacon from the cold, dead heart of space?
Oh,
Wow.
thanks for that. I
Wow.
didn't even think of that. I appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. That is good. Um, I can't really think of anything else to talk about. I think we pretty much hit all the points that I was going to bring up. So, and yeah, I'm just, it's like half the bridge crew isn't even people who were originally with the crew. And it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Because I know how people can have conflicts and stuff like that. So, Um, yeah, I enjoyed this episode, even with the sort of clunky placement of the flashbacks. I appreciated the backstory that we got with that. I'm starting to learn more about the relationship between Locke and Maul and how it's not just, you know, teenagers running off to be together, though it doesn't seem like they're that young. I mean, they're adults, but it seems deeper than that, but there's still a lot we don't know. By the way, I love your T-shirt, Dan.
Oh,
It's amazing.
thanks.
And so I guess I would give this, phew, gosh, so many choices. 1/2 of Locke's ship, which is a good score. Because I love that ship, man.
Hmm.
You've taken it from me.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed this episode. I don't think it was at the high bar of the previous week's episode personally. Um,
Mm,
Mostly for the pacing issues and stuff like that. But I really liked it. Like I love the canon connections with the ISS Enterprise, and the Breen reveal was pretty cool. Seeing the 32nd century Breen. I kind of like what they've done with them. I'm curious to learn more. Like we've seen
mm,
them, but we still don't know like culturally a lot about them. I'd love to. I always loved the way they did the Breen in the post Deep Space Nine relaunch novels.
mhm.
And I know we're not going to get that. That's whatever. But um, I'm looking forward to something as well thought out and interesting as that too. So yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna say one ship full of refugees from the Terran Empire making a better life for themselves in the Prime universe.
excellent.
Yeah. Which brings us to Whistlespeak, um, the next episode. So I honestly can't remember what I was going to. Oh yeah, change my name to. Uh, it's simple name. So oh, I didn't. I'm not changing it. That's perfect.
Yeah, well, there was a part of me that really wanted to do something else, but I wouldn't be able to really get the same feeling in text because it's that moment where Tilly goes, "Sacrifice?"
It's hard to get that tone in there, right? I love
Yep.
that.
Yeah,
That was great.
yeah. "Sacrifice?" Yeah, so I just went with that.
That is that's really funny. I did not look at your I didn't realize. That's funny. I love
I
it.
wanted to do I do love the feel of paper, but it was too long.
Mhm. I'm leaving it. I think that's funny.
Mhm.
So yeah, we've got a continuation from last week's episode. They're going to analyze this clue, which turns out to be a vial of distilled water. No matter what test they throw at it, no matter what they do, it's just a vial of distilled water, which seems to be a bit of a dead end. But then there's cultural significance, right? Which is something we've learned is important. And through some convoluted figuring and realizing the time period it's from, and also thanks to Kovich, who has gotten the list of scientists, and they realize it's the Denobulan scientist, they figure out which planet it is that they're supposed to go to. So I think we should start by talking about Kovich because I love this character so much. I love
Mm.
his 21st century legal pad, all of that stuff.
Yeah, no one was as surprised as I was to see David Cronenberg enter the Star Trek universe.
Right?
I'm just like, "Wait,
Wild.
what?" Like, the first time it happens, Dave and I are just like, "What is David Cronenberg doing in Star Trek? I can't
Yeah.
wait to find out."
It's so it's bizarre, and I love that he keeps coming back. I
Yes.
love that I have no idea what his role is at this
I
point.
know.
Like, I I remember in season 3, we were like, "Is he the president?" 'Cause like, meet like, we just had no idea, right? Then he was, like a mental health expert with dealing with Culber and a computer sciences expert when dealing with Zora, and now all this kind of black ops behind the scenes stuff going on. What is his title? Like,
Don't think he has one.
that's yeah. We know he's a doctor. A doctor of what exactly?
Mhm. Is
I
it
don't know.
PhD? Is it MD? Is it both?
Is it several doctorates? I feel maybe. How old is he? What
I
is he?
what he appears to be human, but that's nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing substantive. Wow. Just
Mhm.
yeah, wow.
I don't know. I've been seeing this, theory as well, that he's future guy from Enterprise. I'd be like, "Okay, cool," but that still doesn't tell us much.
Yeah.
Um,
It tells us a role he plays, but not who he is.
mhm,
Because,
yeah.
like, that was his life's purpose? I don't think so. This guy has been up to a lot of stuff.
I
A
like
lot of
this.
stuff.
Kovich is actually in the writer's room, and Burnham somehow materialized there. Kind of a She-Hulk-esque,
Yes.
component to that.
There we go. Very meta. Very meta.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I love his legal pad and his list of scientists. The Betazoid one is named Marina, by the way.
I
I
noticed.
thought that was
Mhm.
clever.
Very
A nice
clever.
little homage, I think.
Indeed.
Um, yeah, and so combined with that identity, they discover that it's this planet that this Denobulan scientist installed weather modification towers on, to help produce rain and hold back, at this point, hold back the dust storms, I guess, that are all over the rest of the planet. Because of the 5 towers, only one is still operational, so it's just this little oasis in the middle of the planet there. Um, so Burnham and Tilly are going to beam down in a very classic Star Trek trope. They're wearing native garb and they've altered their face to appear like the inhabitants of the planet, and are going to blend in and try and find this weather tower where they think that maybe the next clue is going to be, and also learn a little bit about this society. And yeah, this felt very classic Trek to me. And when I say classic Trek, I mean all the previous decades of Trek, not just TOS, but
Right.
like this felt very in the vein of a classic Trek episode.
Yeah, the only thing that confused me is apparently the transporter can do hairstyles now?
I like that. Yeah, sure.
It's just like, "Okay, Tilly's hair was down in the back when they transported, and now it's up in a bun."
Ah,
Hmm.
I didn't catch that. That's funny. There's
Oh, I am always got my eyes on Tilly's hair. Always. I always know.
I
So,
remember in the
yeah.
the first episode we talked about the possibility of Burnham having programmable matter hair,
Mhm.
or programmable hair. I
Yeah.
wonder if maybe Tilly's got something of the same too.
Yeah,
I
I hope
wonder
so.
I wonder if it when it changes your hair like that, now I'm like, does she know? Because she hasn't looked in it. She'll be like,
She
"What
would
the?"
because she'd be feeling it up against the back of her neck anymore. She would know. She would absolutely know.
Yeah. That's yeah, so they have been doing
That's
this a little bit. Yeah, the face markings, they loaded, like, I think Bryce, was it? Bryce or Reese. No, it was Reese. Bryce isn't
Oh,
there anymore. Reese loaded the subcutaneous transponders into the transporter, and presumably the retinal tricorder was also beamed into them as they beamed down. So
handy. Handy
yeah,
that.
that's pretty cool. So the computer was like, your hair's not quite right for this planet.
Yeah.
There you go.
This is going to be too hot. You've got a lot of hair, honey, and you don't want it hanging down the back of your neck. I'm sorry, but I'm putting my foot down. Your hair's going in a bun.
Exactly. Huh. So is it Zora then? She's like,
Yeah, I'm sure it was Zora. She's just like, now I'm going to fix that for you.
I like that. Yeah. Um, so yeah, they're on this planet. They're listening to the Whistlespeak, the namesake of the episode, and getting it translated. There's this group that's headed towards the high summit. That's what they call it, to worship. And they join up with this group and learn a little bit about this culture. And this one woman has her lungs full of dust,
Hmm.
which oh, that's painful hearing her talk. Like I just um and she's not doing too well. They're making their way there, and she takes a turn, and I loved this little bit of like I've been talking with people recently, and it's come up a lot recently about um innovation and technology from older cultures that
Mm,
we as in our 21st century mindset don't sometimes appreciate the
mm,
expertise and the knowledge that ancient peoples brought. And I'm not talking about things like, the Mayan calendar predicting the end of the world or something like that, that they had this knowledge of, how everything works or anything like that. But as far as interacting with their environment and how to manage resources and manage things, ancient cultures who have lived in a place for a long time have a lot more knowledge than we tend to give them credit for. And I love that, yeah, we could just use this technology to dislodge this like nothing. And oh, what are we going to do? And these people have come up with that cure. The sonic cure with the sound waves and stuff in their own way. I loved that. That was such a good scene.
it was really good. I wasn't sure what they were doing at first. I'm like, oh, they're gonna do bowls. Okay. So, strike the bowl and then start circling it. I've done that in real life and it can be intense.
Mhm.
But yeah, I really loved that scene. And uh unfortunately, Michael didn't handle it very
No, she didn't react
she
very well. Yeah.
she passed out, but she did help as much as she could, and, um, I, I'm gonna go on record now, Rava's dad, forget his name off the top of my head, totally hot. Those dark brown eyes, that silver hair, yes. Anyway,
Mhm.
um, yeah, I just when I saw that woman, whom I'm not sure if she was ever named, but it gave me a flashback to 2015 when I had pneumonia and didn't know I
Mm.
had pneumonia,
Oh,
and I had been
yeah.
told that it was just a cold, and I suffered for 3 weeks. I got to the point where I couldn't even walk without having an attack where I had to stop and just try to breathe, and so I really felt her pain,
Oh,
and
yeah,
the actor who portrayed her, kudos, because I believed every second of it.
absolutely. Yeah. No, that was really well done, and definitely I have family members with really bad asthma and stuff, and yeah, it's painful to see, and I felt that for sure.
Well, there's nothing more terrifying than not being able to breathe.
Yeah, absolutely. I've luckily very rarely has happened to me, but I've had a couple times where I felt close to that, or at least in my mind felt close to that, and yeah, it's absolutely terrifying for sure.
Mhm.
So yeah, we meet Rava, like you said, and their father, Obaz or Ovaz, I'm not sure.
I can't remember. I should have written it down. I'm terrible. Yeah.
I heard it as Obaz, but then I saw a review where they called him Ovaz, and I actually hadn't done the subtitles for this one, other than how to spell compere.
Mhm.
So, I didn't check that out, but, yeah, there's this, you're not able to enter the temple normally or enter the high summit to commune with the gods, except there's this race, the journey of the Mother Compere, where the winner is able to enter the high summit and commune with the gods. Now, I watched this with Nikki, my wife, and very early on, she immediately picked up that, like, oh, this is like a sacrifice or something. As soon as she said that, I was like, oh yeah, like absolutely. I'm a little distraught that Tilly and Burnham didn't pick up on some of that stuff because it's pretty obvious once you realize what's going on. But the winner of this race is going to be sacrificed or have to give their life to commune with the gods. And there's a few clues there that, you know, they're pretending that they're part of the society, so they can't ask questions. So I
Mhm.
appreciate the difficult position they're in. And they illustrated that well a couple times where Burnham expresses just the slightest bit of lack of knowledge of something. Like, you can tell the people around her kind of jump on it, like, "How do you not? Oh, yeah, no, I know. I just," so I think they
Yeah.
did that well, but, like, there were signs there.
There were, but at the same time, I can see how they missed those signs
Mhm.
because it's portrayed in a way to, of the actual natives that this journey itself is the sacrifice. It is mirroring
Yeah.
the sacrifice the mother Compere made when she was bringing water to her children. And so I can see how they might miss that, but I had a foreboding feeling all along. I'm just like, commune with the gods. I don't feel like that's a good thing. I really don't. I really just don't. And so
Yeah.
I was not completely surprised by that either. I was just kind of like, feels fishy. This feels really fishy.
Yeah. The
And
other
it's
thing is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. I'm pretty much done.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. I was just gonna say the other thing is we're seeing more than they are too. So, we're seeing the older woman talk about her friend who won the race and she misses her. Like, that was the first kind of like, but
Mhm.
if you're not really, you might kind of like, "Oh, she's older, she was sick, her friend probably got sick too, this happens." But we're also seeing the interaction between Ovaz and thank you, Seal, for the it is Ovaz. Thank you for that. Um, we're seeing his interaction with his child, and they're not really seeing that up close like we are. We're not seeing the hushed conversation where he's like not just being overprotective. There's something else there that he does not want them to do this. Um, so yeah, we're getting a few more clues than they are. And for the most part, everybody's acting pretty cheerful and happy. And so they're not in the mind that this is going to happen. But yeah, plausibly ambiguous. I like
Mhm.
that. If you're not already, you miss it kind of thing. So
Yeah, I think the one big thing for me was when, the woman who had dust in her lungs, when she talks about her friend, and then
yeah.
she very it's almost urgently says, "You don't have to go to the high summit
Yeah.
to commune with the gods. You don't have to do that." It's like she's trying, and you could say that to someone who knows what's waiting for them at the end, and maybe they would think twice about it.
Hmm.
But Michael didn't know. Michael didn't
Yeah.
know, and so that thing went over her head, and she just said, "That I've been, striving for this for my entire life." And you see, like, this little flash of regret and sadness on the woman's face. Again,
Hmm.
this woman, this
So
actor,
subtle.
amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this benefits from a rewatch so much because you catch those things.
Yeah.
It's so good. Um, and it's probably, like, in her culture, like, it would be blasphemous for her to say that it's a bad thing, right?
Mhm.
So you see those signs on her face that she's feeling this, but she can't. like, but she can't say like it would be bad for you to go there and die. She can't say that, right? She has
Mhm.
to say like, you don't have to. You can do other things. And
Yeah.
okay,
Can live a life. Live a life.
yeah,
That might be a good idea.
yeah. But yeah, so they take part in this race, and there's some great moments here. First of all, the thing they ingest that induces this horrible thirst.
It's basically a salt cube.
Yeah, yeah, it not good.
Mm-mm.
And then the cruelty, but also the like. I'm glad you know they're not insane, so they have bowls of water alongside the course. I like that's your easy out, and that temptation is always there, right? I thought that was clever. And Burnham seeing the mutated moss and saying, I'm gonna go check this out. I think we might have the console. And Tilly bravely continuing this race until it's just her and Rava at the end. And so the ending bit where they have to carry the temptation with them to the finish line. Um, Once like for certain what's going to happen on the rewatch, it feels so ghoulish to me
Mhm.
because like um the actor who played Rava did an amazing job, but and I don't know if this was on purpose, but I almost feel like the trip and spill could have been like, I'm at least subconsciously having second thoughts about this, and I don't want
Mhm.
to do this. And then Tilly bringing them back into the race. Um, ooh, I'm sure that they really wanted to win, and but on the just the slight possibility that they didn't, like, oh man, Tilly, no.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing that, Tilly has, experience in running marathons, so
Yeah, absolutely. And also watching that whole thing from Ovaz's
Mhm.
perspective too. Like he's like, "Oh, thank you. Oh my
Mhm.
god, thank you. They're not gonna what do you?" And you can tell when Tilly
Oh, yeah.
starts moving towards her. He's like, "Okay, come along, come drink. You're good. He's desperate to save his child here. And yeah, oh, I felt so bad for him in that moment.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing, especially on a second watch, when, Tilly fills Rava's bowl, uh, with some of her water, and they go stumbling to the finish line, it's like 10 feet away! 10 feet? Really? I was
Yeah,
expecting that to go on for a bit longer, but no, it's just gotta stumble this last 10 feet.
yeah, it's just the last little bit with the water, but that's what made me think that, like, maybe at least on a subconscious level,
Mm,
Rava wanted out. Uh,
mhm.
Maybe not consciously, but
Well, they're very
oh,
young, and they have so much to give and so much to
yeah.
look forward to, and
Oh,
all they wanted was to make daddy proud, and the I'm sorry, do you think sacrificing your life is
yeah.
is the proper expression of that? And the fact that they did think that breaks my heart.
Mhm. Yeah. And so the when they're actually in the high summit and they get sealed off, and like at first they're so joyful to be there, but it very quickly becomes all of that gets stripped away,
Mm,
and all that's left is what is natural, of desire to live. And it's so heartbreaking when their head is on Tilly's lap and she's just comforting them. Like,
mhm.
oh my god, that really got to me. I really really felt for them there.
Yeah, the first time I watched the episode, I was more just like, "What?" And then the second time I watched the episode, I had very much more I had a lot more let's try to say this in words that mean something. I had a lot more emotional reactions to things.
Mhm.
So, yes, I did cry, in case anyone's wondering. in multiple places. So there you go.
Is that
But
6 for 6 for the season or not quite?
yeah, it is. It
Nice.
is.
That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
We're doing season 2, no, I'm not gonna say hysterics because I hate that word.
Yeah.
Season 2 emotional checks. Again, because I cried at every single one of those episodes, for various reasons, and rewatching it, guess what? Still cry.
Yeah. Um, so Burnham, in the meantime, has fixed this console with the help of Adira, who I want to talk a little bit more about, but we'll save that just for a minute. And gets beamed into the chamber outside of where Tilly and Rava are, even though Ovaz is still in there. And I recently read Keith DeCandido's review of this episode, and I absolutely love this because the Prime Directive, it's an indelible part of Star Trek. It's there to create drama. It's fundamentally a good idea, but where it's been taken sometimes in the franchise's history is I hate it. I hate it. Um, in TNG, in the episode Homeward, they Picard wants to let an entire civilization die to preserve the Prime Directive, and that's just what's the point? What's the point of it then? If that's the thing, and I love that it was created to create drama, and it's used perfectly in this episode as like, yeah, there's some tension there. Yeah, it's not the best solution, but Burnham is going to save lives. And like, what would be the point of Tilly and Rava dying? Like, how would that be a net good for anybody? Whether that's this culture, whether that's Discovery, I just and I know there's more nuance to this, but I really like what they did with that in this episode where, yeah, Burnham's going to have to fill out some paperwork, but
Yeah.
she did a net good, I think.
Well, when you really think about it, how often do we get told, "Oh, no, we can't break the Prime Directive." Well, that's just a big red flag saying, "Somebody's gonna break the Prime Directive."
Exactly.
So it's like, "Oh, yep, yep, we're mentioning the Prime Directive already, so yep,
Yeah.
definitely." And the thing is that if they hadn't broken the Prime Directive, that civilization would eventually cease to exist. That
Mhm.
planet would just become one giant dust ball, completely
Exactly.
devoid of life. So what's the point in that?
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
I was definitely on Team Burnham for that.
Yeah. And so that dynamic is interesting when she's in the chamber with Ovaz, and he's desperate for an excuse to save his child, but he's also warring with this his position as high priest of his people and all this stuff, right? Like, he wants nothing more than to open that chamber, but Burnham still has to like try and find a way to convince him because he like he says later, there's been incidences of violence when they've tried to stop the sacrifices, and people don't want to lose that. It's an important part of their faith and stuff. And like, can you imagine all the stuff going through his head, like trying to do that mental calculus? um and meanwhile, here's somebody who's magically appeared in front of him and given him all the reason in the world to open that thing. uh what must he be thinking at that moment, right? Like, how, like, if I open this, how weak am I that I've just the first thing that comes along that says, but it's so good. And the way they convince him with the song from the mother and all of that stuff was really well done, I thought.
Agreed. And the fact afterwards when he's like, "I don't know what I'm supposed to believe now," and Michael says, "There is nothing about any of this that says that your gods aren't there."
Mhm.
There's just now us too.
Yeah,
So, and I really appreciate how she handled that.
I agree, absolutely. um I I haven't seen this, but I was wondering about some people comparing this to the episode Who Watches the Watchers, right?
Mm,
Where Picard argues that they're not going to reintroduce the idea of a god because they gave that up so long ago and they're free of that. And some people would say like, oh, Burnham's saying you might still have gods. That's, not the strong
that's-
stance that Picard took. But those people in Who Watches the Watchers had themselves shed that belief a long time ago. These people haven't. Like, it's all about preserving what the culture is at that moment, right? Like,
mhm.
Burnham can't tell them your gods don't exist because she doesn't know that. And that would be damaging, obviously, if she did that. But yeah, I just I was thinking about that episode, and the differences I think make a world of difference there.
I agree. I just appreciate how all of it was handled, really, and
Mhm.
especially with what Burnham said, because she had the hardest job, actually. She
Uh,
had to convince Ovaz to, not let these people die. Also, it's cruel to have, like, fire in that chamber as well,
oh,
which is sucking up all of the
right?
oxygen at a faster rate. That is cruel, an unusual punishment, and it's just, you know, I know that sacrificing people is not an uncommon thing in our own ancient history and whatnot, but there's a part of me that's just like, "Really? Really? You have such devout belief in something that you have never seen that you are willing to kill another person for it?
I
That
mean,
you think it's being demanded of you to kill another person? Are you sure that's a god? Because it sounds like a devil to me."
I mean, that's such a common thing. Like, that exists in our world today.
It's just,
Uh,
yeah, it's just
yeah.
so it's I I think it's like, take away the words, look at the actions. This is always what I say about people is, and it's something that, even seen in video games, like, and I may have mentioned this before, I love the game Fallout 4, and there's this
Mm.
character in it named Deacon who lies a lot, and I'm always catching him in his lies every time, but it's because he hates who he used to be, and he's spending his life making up for it. But he says something to the effect of, "Yeah, I lied about this, but other people are going to try to spoon feed you their own patented BS. And what you have to do is ignore the verbiage and look at what they're doing, how they would, what they would remake the world to be, and how would they pay for it." So, yeah, you got to watch the actions of people, the actions of your gods or what have you, and not listen to the words as much, because words are words. They can be twisted to fit anyone's uh, agenda,
Mhm.
but the actions will tell you who somebody is.
That's a good point. Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I love how Ovaz reacts to everything and becomes that pragmatic leader too, where he says like, okay, I have all this new information now. How do I sell this to the people? Like, he's still thinking of that like, how do I, after all these people have gone through, and this was kind of going through my head, how does he walk out now with his child and say like, hey, when it came down to it, um like, I could see the accusations of like bias, obviously, and all this stuff. The thing that kind of tips it is they've now fixed the tower, so it's going to rain. So he can very obviously say, look, like this. I like that. But that was what, like, I keep thinking all the stuff that he must be wrestling with. Um in a
Yeah.
lot of ways reminded me of New Eden and that whole story in
Mhm,
season 2 as well, which
mhm.
somebody in the comments recently brought up as well. But yeah, I it's one that a good episode of Star Trek really makes me think about stuff a long time after it, and yeah, I find myself thinking about them and like in the same way that I was wondering how things are going on New Eden, right? I'm
Mhm.
wondering how things are going on that planet now.
Yeah. Well, and I think was it I don't know, was it Burnham who said I can't remember who said the line. My brain
Mm.
sometimes, I swear, getting old sucks. Um, was said, it's a part of being a good leader is also being able to listen when the gods say something new,
Right.
something to
Yeah.
that effect. So, and I was like, yeah, because otherwise they're just dead gods, aren't they?
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah, and also, just for the record, there is no particular virtue in doing things the way they have always been done.
No, not not exactly. Absolutely. I hadn't heard this. I like that characterization of this.
Wow, that's great.
That's really good. That's gonna be on my mind a lot now.
Good food for thought. Thanks,
For
TJ.
sure. All right, let's talk about some other stuff that's going on in this episode. So Adira is getting time on the bridge because they expressed a desire to get more bridge time, and I guess Rayner said, "All right, head up there."
Yep. I didn't mean right now.
That was great. And they're wrestling with what they feel is their culpability in the time bug getting aboard the ship, which not their fault.
No,
Uh,
not their fault at all.
Steiner has reinforced that, which absolutely not their fault. And yeah, Adira really comes in here with the I was like, okay, so it's isolinear technology. That's really old technology at this point. But at the same time, of the crew members, I mean, I guess there's other new crew members, but of the original Discovery crew members, they would be the only one that, you know, uh, has that technology in their past.
Mhm.
So it kind of makes sense. But that was cool to see the isolinear tech as well. That was fun.
I love a good panel full of isolinear chips. It's a good
Hmm.
time. It's a
I
good
just
time.
want to like start doing that, right?
It's like playing with a light bright, you know? You just wanna poke holes in there. Um, I do appreciate Rayner's no nonsense attitude to it, where he's just, like, looking at Adira and because Adira's like, "No, I can't do this," and, Rayner looks at them and says, "Hey, if I didn't think you were ready, I wouldn't have had you up here.
Yeah.
You can do this." It's just like, what's the big deal here? And, like, he doesn't make a big deal about it's not like a huge rah rah pep talk. It's just like, you can do this. I know you can do this. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. And I
Yeah.
loved that.
Yeah. I thought that was great for sure. The other big part of the episode, of course, is Culber and what he's going through. This kind of he's experienced something of what he's interpreting as the divine, right? Like this kind of spiritual awakening. Um, which is, I mean, I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm interested to see how they stick the landing with
Mm,
him and all of this. It's something that I'm still having a little bit of trouble relating to, and I kind of understand that's my own hangups. That's my own thing that I'm bringing to stuff. Just because I think in my life I've kind of had the opposite journey a little bit.
mm.
But I recognize that as that's my thing. So I appreciate this story, and I like how Stamets reacted to it as well, where, yeah, maybe he doesn't totally get it. Maybe he's kind of like me, where he doesn't really get it, but have fun with it. Like your brain's doing a thing from his perspective. That's how he's interpreting it. Um, Enjoy it. See where it takes you. Have some fun. I like that. I think that's a really mature attitude, and Stamets himself has gone through so much growth that like season one, can you imagine season one Stamets saying this to Culber? No,
Nope.
not
No.
at all.
Never would
He's
happened.
ridden the mushroom highway enough now though that he's like, have at it, have fun.
Yeah, well, and I like the way that his first concern is that he is okay health-wise, that there aren't any actual, um
Just wanted to get your rating in there as you leave. Sorry you
I
can't stick
appreciate it.
around, but
Yeah. So, yeah, so when he's just like, "Are you okay? Are you sure you're okay?"
Mhm.
That is his first concern is, "Are you okay?" And then, yeah, he doesn't understand, he can't relate personally to what Hugh is experiencing, and but he's just so supportive. He's Stamets, oh, I love him.
Yeah.
And just I think, being Space Dad has also mellowed him and also tripped him out a little bit more. So it's just like, "I have no
Yeah.
idea what I'm doing. I'm suddenly a dad."
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, I'm curious to see where that goes. I also loved Culber's interaction with Book in this episode. Those two together
Yes.
are so great.
Mhm.
Um, and Book, his bit of wisdom there, it's a quirk of humans, their tendency to consider something less meaningful if it's just for yourself. I
Mm.
love that line. That is something that's going to stick with me. Like,
Yes.
I have this tendency to, like, diminish things that are like, "Oh, I know I'm just reading this silly thing just for whatever," and it's like, if you enjoy it, like, it's just
Mhm.
for me, so I minimize it, and, yeah, that's funny. Why would we minimize that? I love that.
I don't know. That's why I'm completely transparent about being a Hallmark junkie. Don't care who
Yeah,
knows. Don't care who knows. It's something I enjoy. It's a safe place. So,
mhm.
I'm just gonna live there.
Yeah, and I mean, like, as a kid, that's what Star Trek was for me. That was
Same.
something that I kept hidden and quiet because, of the social cost of letting it be known that you liked adventures aboard starships. Oh,
Mm,
heavens.
yeah.
I but it's a splash of cold water in the face to know that, "Oh, crap, I still do that about other stuff," you know?
I think we all do, and I think it's all about, um, worrying about our social appearance, and you know
Mhm.
what? Why do that to yourself? Be who you are.
Yeah.
Just be who you are. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about you. What matters most is what you think about you.
Mhm.
No one else can take you down a path of destruction better than yourself.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
why not be your own best champion instead?
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of this one. They do find the last clue. Of course, it's in Tower 5 because the scratches on it indicated the number 5. It's got a little metal card on it with some Betazoid text, but we're not going to really learn what that's all about until um, sometime in the future. Possibly the next episode. I haven't seen it yet, but it sounds like they're going to go deal with Maul and Locke next episode. So just by what happens at the end of this one. They get called away to do that. So, yeah. Uh, oh yeah. Can I talk about Book playing like asteroids in the
Asteroids on the
shuttlecraft?
shuttle! Yes! Thank you. Thank you. I was laughing so hard. I'm like, "Oh, wow, this brings me back to my childhood."
That was so great. I also loved that, like, why aren't you doing this on the holodeck? And he's like, "Oh, I can always tell when it's not a real ship." And I'm like, wait.
It's so great. I loved it. I loved that.
I thought that was wonderful. Um, Yeah, I was like, "Oh, it's why would you play something with, like, such whatever?" But, like, people play chess today, like, and
Mhm.
yeah, whatever. I love that. I thought that was really cool.
It was fantastic. I'd forgotten about that, so thank you for bringing it up before we close the discussion, because that was just one of those little moments that made me so happy.
That was so cool. I love that. Um, well, yeah, I guess on that note, final thoughts or anything we haven't brought up. We went through it fairly not as quickly as Mirrors, but fairly quickly. Final thoughts and ratings for Whistlespeak. Oh, it's part of my final thoughts. I'll share it during my final thoughts.
You wanna go first? Go first. Go
Oh,
first.
okay. Um, So I really liked this episode. I thought it was just harkened back to a lot of really good classic Trek themes. Um, the one thing that just kind of niggles at the back of my head is the actual namesake of the episode, Whistlespeak. I kept expecting that to kind of play a bigger role. And for them having named the episode that, it really doesn't do much, which I was a little disappointed in, I guess. But um, not so much like upset at that, but just slightly confused, I guess. But other than that, I really loved this episode. I thought the guest actors were just top notch in this. Um, I loved the insights into the society that everyone is like, it's very egalitarian. Everyone is compeer. There's, you know, um, Ovaz is like the priest, but that's like the only other title we get other than compeer, where everybody's kind of on the same level. I thought it was really cool. I really liked this one. So I'm going to give it I'm going to give it one really well whistled greeting.
I this episode, I enjoyed it too. It's the kind of episode that can really go either way, where, they're
Mhm.
blending into a culture, etc., and it can be well structured or it could be not well structured. Um, don't even get me started on certain things. But I appreciated having so much Tilly. Thank you for giving me so much Tilly, and for Tilly just being the brilliant person that she always is. And, it's her jogging along, object in motion or body in motion stays in motion, body in motion stays in motion. The body is stopped. Just, just classic Tilly. And that's the beauty of Mary Wiseman, is she can deliver lines in a way that no one else can, and just make us love her because she's amazing in all things.
Mhm.
Um, phew, I had a thought and then I lost it. I hate when I do that. I really hate when I do that. Ding dang. Oh, there it is. Basically, obviously we knew that they weren't going to kill off Tilly and therefore weren't going to kill off Rava, but I didn't know exactly how they were going to come to that. I appreciated them breaking the Prime Directive. It was fun to see what basically amounted to runes as numbers on the wall so that they could
Mhm.
figure out where the clue was, etc. And so, and I, again, gave me emotional responses. So that's always a good thing. So I will give it one giant Michael Burnham being a nerdy xenoanthropologist over the Whistlespeak.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I like this episode. I already gave my final thoughts. So anyway, um, yeah, I can't I actually haven't seen the next episode. I'm really curious to get to it. I liked that the USS Lockerer they mentioned. We saw it in a previous episode. Was named for JP Lockerer, who was a camera operator on Discovery, who sadly passed away in 2022.
Mm,
Um, so a nice little homage to him, I
yes.
thought. And yeah. Oh, the other little thing was the latch that was the latch that was used to open the thing
Hmm.
reminded me of like the latches to release the main deflector dish in
Yep.
First Contact. And I was like,
Yep. 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 Yep.
it's
Yep.
around the
Yep.
same time period. Makes
And to
sense.
release all the pieces of the shields to get off the Cerritos so that they could keep the
Right.
Imperials from going up in a ball of flames.
Yep. Absolutely. So yeah, I've seen interesting split takes on this episode. It's like the best of the season, and then other people are like, really don't like it. And I love to pick their brains to find out why, because
Mm,
this feels very classic Trek to me. So
yeah.
anyway,
Well, if I'm going to be honest, episode 4 is still my favorite at this point. Time bug.
yeah, me too. I think so too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was so
Because
good.
time bug.
Time bug,
Time
absolutely.
bug.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Really appreciated it. We will be back again next week to talk about the next episode. Um, until then, Positively Trek discussion group on Facebook. Continue the conversation there. Love it. At Kurtrats on pretty much all the social medias, you'll find me. And Brandi,
You know the places. Do I really have
all
to
the
tell them?
places. You don't have to. It's all good.
Yeah, it's just, you know, you can find me. You know how to find me by now, guys. Come on.
Hit like on this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate all the regulars coming and joining us. And if you know of any cool Star Trek fans who like this kind of thing, tell them, invite them. It'd be a lot of fun. So, yeah. See you next week. Live long and prosper.